Alrighty, hello my friends. It is Thursday. We are ending the week. I can't believe it. And it is time for another Facebook Live. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy for the feedback that I've been getting on the Facebook Lives. It's great. And today it is we are on for our Thursday topic, and on Thursdays we talk about incoming money. And the bigger topic for this week is feeling our feelings. Okay, and we feel our feelings so that we develop the capacity to have the things that we have in our life. All right, and this can be so tricky, and I get it. I really, really do. I get it because I think that there are so many of us that have so many negative feelings about money. And when we start looking at incoming money, and tomorrow when we look at outgoing money, and we just think about the money that we have, and Thursdays it's incoming money, the money that we bring in, and we have thoughts about that, and then we have all of these feelings. Okay, and I think for most people, and I know this was true of me when I started this journey, I think that for most people, we have a lot of vulnerability around our incoming money. I know I did. I don't anymore. Oddly enough, as a as a small business owner in this environment, I really kind of don't. Okay. And I say that like I have vulnerability, right? Because vulnerability is a feeling that I cultivate. I feel like I am in the right place when I'm feeling vulnerable, and I know that I'm moving forward in my life when I'm feeling vulnerable, and so I cultivate vulnerability, and I'm not afraid of it. But I think that for so many of us, we feel so very vulnerable, and we think that something is going wrong when we feel vulnerable. We're going to dive into that today a lot. And then I think that those core emotions around money that many of us have, we have vulnerability, like we just talked about. I think that there's a lot of shame around our incoming money and the money that we have. I think that there is a lot of fear, panic, hiding, and massive levels of discomfort. Money is an uncomfortable topic to talk about. If we ever had the capacity to talk about money, we have probably lost the capacity to talk about money. And money is one of those things that I think that it's incredibly important for us to be talking about, okay? Because money is neutral, okay? And I know for so many of you, like when we were talking about telling the truth about our money last week, money really isn't neutral. I get it. I really, really do. I get it that money isn't neutral because I have been there. I totally have. And I have been there in like the not too recent past, okay? And here's the thing, though, is that the reason I'm here and the reason I'm talking about all of this is because when you can create a space for money to be neutral and to not be about you in your life, you can all of a sudden do the things that you want to do with money, okay? And as I've said before, money can't buy you happiness. It can't buy you the love of your own self. It can't buy you the love of your own people. But it sure does make weathering storms a lot easier. It's a lot more fun when you say, hey, can we go out to dinner tomorrow night? And the answer is yes, because it's in the budget. It's a lot more fun. I'm not going to lie. It is more fun to have money than to not have money. Okay, you can't eat money, and I totally get it. You can't fall asleep to your money, and I totally get it. But more money, guys, is more fun than less money. Okay? But to get there, it's super important to understand that money isn't actually anything. Like, literally, your incoming money, if you get direct deposit, is ones and zeros that we've decided has value. I was having a conversation this morning, one of the guys I work with, and he was talking about the Small Business Administration, whether or not they've run out of money for the EIDL and the Paycheck Protection Program, or however all those things are working, of which I have seen not a dime, I have to tell you. And it like cracks me up. Because as a sovereign nation, I will tell you, we literally can't run out of money. We print more. All right? I've got a whole degree in this, and I promise you we just print more. Now, there are other things that happen, but I promise you we're not running out of money, okay? And that money only has value because we've decided money has value, okay? I know that you've heard that before. I've said it before. Money only has value because we've decided it has value. So all those truths that you wrote down last week about what your incoming money is, okay? And then what you thought about that incoming money, okay? So I will give you an example of my incoming money. I am a service-connected veteran, okay? And as a service-connected veteran, so I'm 20% service-connected. As a service-connected veteran, I get a paycheck from Uncle Sam every month, and I think it's to the tune of like $284 every month. And it has been, when did I get injured? 2006, and then I got service-connected when I got out of the Army in 2009, and so I have been getting a monthly paycheck from Uncle Sam for my ankle injury and my thyroid condition, which I developed while I was in the service, for 11 years. Okay. And it's, I think, and you can look up what 20% service connection gets you. I think it's 208. It's somewhere between 267 and 284, and it sometimes depends on how much money I owe the VA for my meds. Okay, because I have non-service connected meds. And like I look at that, it used to be, I have to tell you, I looked at that paycheck coming in, okay? Because that was the only money after I got out of the service. And I was pregnant with Ben, and I got out of the service, and I didn't go get a job because I think I had Ben on my terminal leave, and Ben was born on May 25th, and then I separated on June 6th. So I was essentially on maternity leave, and I had a small nursing child, and I didn't go get a job until the fall, and I had no paycheck coming in, and there were lots of thoughts associated with that. But I did have that, it was even less than that, so it was like $240 some odd back then, coming in from the VA as a result of my getting injured while I was in the Army. And I would look at that paycheck, and I would get so mad. Because I have to tell you, dumb as my injury is, and I got injured, for those of you who don't know me, I got injured playing Ultimate Frisbee, and I, like, lost a tendon getting tackled playing Ultimate Frisbee during sports PT at 5:30 in the morning on a Friday in San Antonio, Texas. I have probably what's the dumbest service-connected injury in the entire Army. All right, but you know what? I still don't have that ligament. Yeah, it's a ligament, not a tendon. I still don't have that ligament, and it still hurts every day, okay? And every time I got that check, I was brought back to the sound and the feeling I felt lying on the pitch, not being able to walk, because all of a sudden, everybody thought I broke my ankle, because everybody heard the snap and thought my ankle was gone, right? Not being able to walk, and like I even think of it right now, and I get this feeling in the pit of my stomach of like rage and helplessness. Okay, and I would look at that check as it was deposited into my USAA account, and I would feel helpless, okay? Those of you who are listening and disability or who are getting unemployment right now or whatever, I think that one of the feelings that we feel when we see incoming money, okay, is helplessness. Because we have this idea that not all money is created equal. And there are people, like, there are whole courses you can take out there about the concept of, quote, toxic money. All right, and getting rid of the toxic money in your life. Money is only toxic if you label it toxic, okay? And I would be very careful about labeling a neutral object, okay? And I don't even have any, like, coins around here that I can show you how very neutral money actually is. I'd be very careful about labeling money as toxic or abundant or any of these things that we put on it. Money itself is completely neutral, okay? And it's our thoughts that create abundance or toxicity. And all of those, quote, toxic thoughts that I had about money, I have to tell you, did not actually change the amount of money that the U.S. Army, or I guess the Veterans Administration, gave me every month, okay? And you can see that as for better or for worse. There are some people who make it their job to go get higher service connections, all right? I'm not going and getting a higher service connection for a injury when I know that there are people who are, like, listening to this that have traumatic brain injuries that, like, actually need that money, okay? And I get that's a whole set of thoughts, and everybody makes their own decisions about those sorts of things, all right? But there are so many of us, when we look at incoming money, and tomorrow when we look at outgoing money, that we have amazingly negative thoughts about it, okay? And those thoughts create these super negative feelings, like helplessness, okay? And I get it. I really get it. You can feel so helpless in the facts of your money. And what does it look like? And I want you to contemplate this. What does it look like to just stay right there with the helpless, okay? And you look at the truths of your money that you wrote down last week. How much money is in your checking account? How much money is in your savings account? Okay, long-term assets. We'll talk about liabilities tomorrow. Like your retirement savings, how much your house is worth, all of that sort of thing, okay? And what if, in addition to telling your truth about the nouns, about the facts, okay, you told yourself the truth about how you feel about that money? Because most of us will immediately dive into not enough, all right? There are precious few people who are listening to this who are like, yep, I totally have enough money, all right? And that not enough is super easy to access. And when you're thinking not enough about your money, there's not enough money, that very quickly goes to, I'm not enough and I'm not good enough. Because if I was good enough, I would be bringing in more money. Because in our society, we equate our value to society with the amount of money that we generate. All right? If we did not, we would be having a whole entire different conversation about what all of us are actually doing now that we're home with our kids for the entire, I mean, like, we're what is it, April 16th? I think we've been out of school for a complete month now, all right? We'd be having a completely different conversation about that, right? But we're not. And there is this level of negative feeling associated with our incoming money and the money that we have that we absolutely have to just feel. And we have to let burn through our system so that we can develop the capacity to actually just have the amount of money that we have without trying to always get more or get rid of it, okay? And what does it feel like to just look at that number and just have that capacity right now? Okay, so I just got my VA check, which is why I'm covering it on the podcast today. And this week, in preparation for this podcast, all I did was I sat and I looked at that number. And I took a deep breath and I wrote down all of the things that that number means, okay? I'm a super confident individual, and I have been labeled with having a disability. I am a disabled vet. I am a veteran with a service-connected disability. And that is told to me every time I get a check from the VA. It's told to me every single time I pull out my VA card, okay, because it says service-connected on there. And yes, I get benefits from that. And they're great. Okay, but that doesn't mean that there aren't also feelings there. Okay? A lot of times when I look at that check that the VA gives me, I grieve the life that might have been had I not been injured. Had I been able to actually stand for long periods of time, because I probably would have gone into mixed animal medicine, all right, and large animal medicine, and been going out to farms, treating cattle and horses and doing clinical medicine like that, because I love that stuff, right? I think most of us veterinarians have a bit of, Dr. Dolittle in us. And I'm one of those vets that really liked being out on the farm and pulling calves, that sort of stuff. Okay. And every time I get that check, I'm reminded that that's not my life. And I love my life right now. But there is, on some level, still grieving over the life I thought I was going to have. Right? And it's so important to create presence, acceptance, and sufficiency with the life that I have, to understand that I grieve the life that I thought I was going to have. And there are many times when we look at our paychecks or we look at our checking account, and one of the emotions that we have to process is grief. And we're not a society that processes grief particularly well, right? We don't have conversations about grief. When was the last time you heard somebody talking this openly about grief around money and incoming money? We just don't talk about it, right? Because it's dirty, or because it's, we're ashamed, or any of those negative feelings. But what if your incoming money has grief associated with it? What if you don't have incoming money and you're a stay-at-home parent right now, and there's grief associated with that? Grieving the life that you thought you were going to have. Grieving the spring that you thought you were going to have, and the money you thought you were going to make. There's grief associated with that. And what does that look like? What does it feel like to drop into your body, into that grief, and be kind to yourself and say, oh, I feel really helpless in my grief. I feel really angry in my grief. I feel really vulnerable in my grief. And what does that feel like? Okay? Because in me, it feels like I'm not going to lie, I have a little bit of a cold sweat going on because I'm talking about this, because I'm out here and these are public. Yeah, and I'm out here and I'm talking about that because it feels really vulnerable, but I don't know how else to be in the world. I really kind of don't. Right? And so my lips are a little tingly, I'm vaguely lightheaded, my fingers are freezing, and I've got a little bit of a cold sweat going on my forehead because I recognize that I have grief to process and helplessness to process about my incoming money. And maybe you have different emotions. Maybe you have shame that your paycheck isn't bigger. Maybe you have confusion. Maybe you have overwhelm. Maybe you have anger that you feel like you should be getting paid more. Okay? Whatever those feelings are, it's incredibly important to just look at them, okay? And go through the process that we've been going through this week about naming your feelings and looking at the language that's creating those feelings, because all of those feelings are coming from a sentence in your head. And before we move on to the work that we're doing next week, which is talking about what results we want to create and how to go about creating them, we got to feel those feelings. We got to be where we are right now before we can move to where we want to get to. Because if you don't do it that way, you're moving in willpower. And I promise you, you can do so much out of willpower, or what I call productive negative emotion. Okay? So many of us do so much with productive negative emotion. And it's entirely possible that the entire contents of your checking and savings account comes from productive negative emotion. I get it. Name those negative emotions. Allow yourself to be productive in your negative emotions. And create the ability, develop the capability, as we say, to understand that your money is negative associations and it has positive associations. And that we have both of them and we give equal airtime to them. You know, when we talk about feelings, a lot of times we talk about like the airing of the grievances, or we have super negative emotions, like I talked about, you know, like toxic money at the top of the podcast, or the podcast, but the top of the live. But there are positive emotions too. You know, I look at that check that comes in from the VA, and I think about how hard I tried in my physical therapy, it turns out to like try and grow back a ligament that I couldn't grow back, but man, I gave that physical therapy my all so that I wouldn't hurt. I am super proud of that, and that check to me means that too. Right, that check means that I was able to withstand the scrutiny of the medical examiners at the VA and say, hey, dude, I know I was injured playing Ultimate Frisbee of all things, but you know what? That was a dumbass reason for me to get injured, right? There was no reason for the girl who tackled me to be playing so stinking hard. There was no reason for 3 weeks prior, which was actually kind of like, this was a cumulative set of events, for there to be a really big hole in the obstacle course that I fell in and couldn't walk in, and I was cheered on for completing the obstacle course anyway. I was super proud of myself for completing that obstacle course with what now looks like a grade 3 sprain, and then 3 weeks later I re-injured that ankle and my ligament just split. There was absolutely no way the ligament could have survived that injury. Maybe sprain or otherwise. Right? But like, what if I gave equal airtime to, the picture I have in my head of 3 weeks before the final injury of me, like, in my PTs, like, crawling through the obstacle course when I couldn't walk and having my sergeant pick me up, and me being, because I'm a MedCom officer, right? Me being like, who walked the course and looked for the hole that I stepped in? And I was an officer at that time, and I was like, Sergeant, who was responsible for that? Because somebody really didn't do their job, and who's getting written up for that? Because somebody's getting written up, because I can't walk, right? And that investment that the Army had made, right, now turned into somebody who it turned out was non-deployable while I was getting that injury taken care of. And this was in 2006, friends, where our ops tempo was really, really high, right? So, like, think about it. Those are all the things that you just heard my thought download on a check around $284 that I get every month. What are those thought downloads that you can come up with? What are the positive feelings that come out of those thoughts? And what are the negative feelings that come out of those thoughts? And how do we give it time? Because that's how you develop the capacity to actually have the amount of money that you have. And when you develop that capacity, then you can think about changing it. Okay, so like yesterday when we talked about, we don't think about changing our jobs until we develop the capacity to be happy at the job we have. We don't change the amount of money we are creating in the universe, the amount of value we are putting out in the universe, until we develop the capacity to have the amount of value that we are putting out right now. And part of that is just dropping in and looking at those numbers and looking at the sentences in your head and looking at and just looking at those words and allowing yourself to create that distance and stopping being afraid of the feelings coming, because that's so much of what stops us. And when you develop the capacity to feel your fear and know it's not going to kill you, right, then you can do so much. When you develop the capacity to feel the fear of being uncomfortable around money, right? then you can just feel that fear, and I promise that fear burns out really, really fast. Like, you have to sit with that fear for, like, I'd be super surprised if it was more than 60 seconds if you just timed it. And the mental exercise that I do with that is I picture myself at the end of my driveway in my home, in like, not my hometown, but like the town I spent my first half of my childhood in New York, because we had a pretty short block and we were kind of in the middle of it. And I picture myself standing at the end of my driveway looking down the road, okay? And the feeling that I'm trying to identify is there down the road. And in between me and this feeling is the fear of this feeling, okay? And that visual image, and dropping into that visual image of there's the fear, and I know what my fear looks like. To me, it's sort of red and thready, okay? And then there's the actual feeling, so the helplessness or the vulnerability or the shame or whatever, and that has a whole different color and context and feeling to it, right? But if I look at that interim fear right there, and I just allow that fear to be there, it differs. And I really don't think it takes more than 60 seconds. Now, you have to develop that, but I think maybe it took me 3 days to develop that. And then you can actually see this feeling for what it is, okay? And you can just close the gap, and you can develop the capability to feel that feeling, and you can just close that gap, right? And then all of a sudden you're feeling the feeling. You're feeling the anxiety, you're feeling the shame, the humiliation, the helplessness. And as I live and breathe, none of that is killing me right now. They feel super acute. It's like survival level feeling intensity, but it's not doing anything to me. I am still sitting here. I am still talking, even though like my mouth is a little dry right now as I feel those feelings, but it's not doing anything to me right now. And as you feel all of your feelings around money and your incoming money, you can do the same thing, okay? Remember to keep breathing. Remember that your, lungs go all the way down in your thorax and things like that, and keep breathing through it, and you will do it, and you will develop the capacity to do it. I promise this is a learned and learnable skill. If I can teach my 10-year-old to do this, and I have, you guys can learn, okay? And all it is the intellectual curiosity to do it, and that's all you need to do. All right, so that's what I got for you today. You are all beautiful, amazing people. If you are on the Proofing Box, I am recording a podcast. I'm doing critical control points and critical limits today, and then I'm talking about mobile slaughter. So if you don't know what the Proofing Box is, just put it in the search bar on Facebook, and I will let you in. But I will be back online in the Proofing Box at 3 o'clock. Talking about critical control points, critical limits, and then I will do office hours on mobile slaughter, because boy howdy, isn't there a lot of interest in mobile slaughter right now. I love you all. You're completely amazing, and we're going to do this same exercise tomorrow about outgoing money, okay? So, toxic money doesn't exist. Let me just tell you that, all right? It's only in your thoughts. You are beautiful. You are amazing. Have a day full of awesome. I love you, and I'll see you tomorrow.